Episode 74. We start out with Chris leaving the medic bay with Cosmo passed out in Tails' arms, and it turns out their spaceship is stranded on a planet full of fallen trees, and Rush's spaceship is stuck here with Shadow too. We ended the last episode with Dark Oak showing up to the heroes in space, and now all of a sudden their spaceship is landed, and Shadow's on the surface of the same planet. I literally checked to see if I'd missed an episode. Tails says there's no communication device anywhere, but then Chris zooms into Cosmo and there's a spark on the monitor, which is an invisible signal from her brain that's microscopic. Chris says that if they get rid of it, she'll never be able to see or hear again since it's attached to her brain. Because the non-Japanese dub wants to make him look like an asshole, Knuckles says that's a chance they'll have to take, rather than saying they can't do that to her like in the original. And Tails naturally lampshades that he's a jerk for saying that, and says he won't let anyone hurt her. Why didn't Shadow just Chaos Control warp away the microtransmitter in Cosmo's brain and avoid all of this drama around it? And avoid the past episode? Once again, this Chaos Control makes the logic of a plot around him fall apart. When hasn't it? Cosmo's awake by now, and she's listening to everything they're saying. Chris says it's clear what they have to do. Yeah, kick her off the team. You don't have to get rid of her vision and hearing. That's a fate worse than death. Knuckles is horribly evil just by suggesting it. Can't they just still have her on the ship but not tell her about their plans against the bad guys? Why is that too simple? As Amy's flying the plane, she just barely avoids crashing into 2 trees in a row. Amy says Rouge figured out where they are, the Metarex home planet. Oh, so that's why they think making people trees here will help them. I called it, but I didn't think we'd see the planet that fast. A woman who looks a bit like Cosmo says that she's come as a hologram to tell them a story about the evil Metarex. Wait, so why is she talking like this is her home planet when she's not a Metarex? Am I really expected to believe that Metarex are Cosmo's people, since Zelkova looked kind of like Cosmo? I always vaguely remembered that Cosmo had a connection with the Metarex from TV tropes. And that would be the predictable plot twist since she's the technical main character of the arc, dedicated more than anyone to stopping them. And the Metarex have plant-themed names. So yeah, kinda obvious from the start. Sonic lampshades that Shadow's a mystery for trying to hurt Cosmo. A mystery, yeah, that's an understatement. They don't know whether to make him a complete monster for trying to kill Cosmo or a good guy. That's very confused writing. That's not how you write an anti-hero. They might as well have turned him into a full-on villain by Season 3. And he might as well have crossed the moral event horizon last episode. The hologram says that a war was going on a long time ago. The flashback is taking forever and barely tells us anything. One of them in the government says they need to find a way to make the transformation last because people are dying. I'm so confused. Just fill in the plot hole! Why are there transformations going on? One of them says a blessed amulet will protect them on their journey. How and why is it blessed? One of the government people doesn't want to give in to the enemy, saying he doesn't want to be a coward and let the fallen perish in vain. Earthia says he has to stay behind and fight the enemy himself if he wants to. Then Earthia is told that the trees outside are dying. Logic would dictate a disease would be killing them. This made way more sense in Fleetway, where Eggman released a plant virus to try to kill all the plants. The guy Earthia was fighting with earlier, Lucas, I think, says that he's found a way to make the transformation actually last. And he's told that he went mad. He says that with this, they can rise up and claim their victory. Earthia whines that her people have always honored the natural world, and this is a betrayal. Fuck you. How is that betrayal? I need him to explain this. He wants to crystallize the power of planets to give themselves the strength of 1,000 armies, so they can evilly make a new order with their power. So that's why she's mad at him. Because him liking technology alone doesn't make him evil. I had Knuckles comic flashbacks. Earthia admits that they have no choice but to destroy them before it's too late. And the Metarex say they're somehow not defeated yet. Then we see that the guys that hate them are robots. So they didn't roboticize themselves because Zelkova or whatever got broken out of armor. So they badnikified themselves. But it was called a transformation. He said that he found a way to make the transformation last. Why did they need a way to make the transformation last? Why were they transforming? This is not a good backstory, because it's just confusing instead of filling in the plot holes. Cosmo's naturally upset and says it's dangerous to be around her, and Shadow should have finished her off by now. I mean, it would have been much easier on Tails if Shadow did it instead. Well, not that much easier. Cream says that they all love her, even if she is a spy, and that just makes her tell Cream to get out, even though she was being nice to her. Cosmo, for some reason, can hear them inside her head now when she couldn't hear them earlier, so that's confusing. Chris says there's a lot of data inside the thing, and he's still downloading. He says he's figured out that the data Tails got from the underground Metarex factory is a plan to wipe out flesh creatures until the whole galaxy is populated only by trees and plant life. So, they're racist? Just racist? That's why they're destroying non-Metarex? That still doesn't make sense because they can't rule over mere trees, so they can't get taxes from them. They can't get supplies built for them. That's not pragmatic. That isn't building an empire. But I guess they're just that racist, and they want everyone other than them to be trees. They want to make room for themselves, and the episode where they terraformed a desert world into a water world for themselves did foreshadow this. Would have been less confusing if that's the only thing they ever did. It just doesn't make sense that they would focus on destroying over just conquering. They're not being logical to a self-destructive extent. But it's not in a contrived way, since races do exist. Why can't they just transform their enemies into Metarex instead of useless trees? If they had this kind of technology, I can buy that they would do anything. More importantly, why couldn't we have been told about this goal of theirs from the start so we'd always understand them, instead of them feeling like forced arbitrary bad guys to do everything for no reason? If Chris got the data that they had this whole plan from the underground Metarex factory, why couldn't they have figured out all of this from the Underground Odyssey episode? Why was that so hard? Like, you'd think that Dark Oak would have bragged to Cosmo that this was his plan, and she would have known about it before she even met him. So there's no excuse for Cosmo not knowing and telling them about this plan of theirs from the start. Naturally, Cosmo wants to run away and fight Dark Oak herself because she's a spy who's done nothing but cause them trouble. Never mind that she's a translator for the Metarex language, which you think would have immediately tipped everyone off that she's of the same species as Metarex from the start, but I guess not. Apparently no one ever thought to question her on this. When Dark Oak had bragged about his big evil plan to Cosmo's people, all of Cosmo's friends reassure her and reaffirm their faith in her, and Shadow naturally dismisses them as being fools. Chris says they doesn't have to go, and he should help them defeat them. They could even use their own weapon against them. Shadow's a douchebag in this show, so it's predictable that he doesn't agree since he's horribly off in the show and there's no likability to him whatsoever. Though I think only in Archie was there ever any sort of likability to him, past SE2. Bo-kun suddenly crashes and begs Shadow to help, and he says the Metarex have taken Eggman prisoner. So much for him being the badass main villain of the series. So much for him having the upper hand on the Metarex and being a double agent against them the whole time, who'd be sabotaging them, like in an earlier episode. No, let's just have him be prisoner. We see him and the robots in a cell for stealing top secret information, and they're told they were under surveillance for a long time. So this episode was about the interesting, if predictable, revelation that Cosmos are the same species as Metarex, and they just divide themselves into two groups, the Naturists and the guys who want to badnikify themselves and take over the universe. Like in the Knuckles comic, but instead of cyborgness, it's badnikification. I guess they were pushed into this by whoever they were warring with, so it does make sense. Empires did exist in real life, and they want to turn the non-Metarex into trees so they can, because they're racist against them and want to make room for themselves on every planet. I mean, overpopulation is a thing. It does make sense. But there's no excuse for us not being told this as soon as possible. How did Cosmo not know all this already? We should have known this from the start, so the Metarex stupidly destroying instead of just trying to conquer and that's it would actually make sense for an alien empire. Cosmo should have been written to explain why they're doing what they're doing from the start, so we could be more invested in the story arc. Instead, I was just detached from the Metarex because these just seemed like generic bad guys. Generic evil aliens were cartoonishly evil to the point of being unrealistic. And their grimdark designs and voices didn't help. We could have easily at least been told by the Metarex that they think all non-Metarex are unworthy of life, and that's why they're stealing planet eggs. Villains are always bragging about their evil plans in fiction. But wait, stealing planet eggs kills the nature. So why would the Metarex want to turn everyone into trees because they love nature so much, but also want to do something that kills every tree on the planet? That doesn't make any sense. They're all about trees, but they destroy them by the billions? I would have expected them to want to get rid of all organic life in general, if they're all about being robots who aren't honoring nature. It'd make more sense for the people like Earthia to have this make everyone trees evil plan, while the Metarex would be about roboticization or something. But they're clearly the ones who turn land into a tree because the robot guys are the ones they last dealt with. So, did they get the ability to badnikify themselves and be an army by using the power of the planet eggs? Is that why they're stealing them? Because they didn't have any Chaos Emeralds as a power source instead to keep things simple? Did Earthia complain because they're using life power to do it, and that's why the trees were dying? I guess so. Not sure how something as inherently undefined on a physical level as life power, like the electricity going through living beings, would be able to make a super powerful energy source. Have you tried making a potato battery? Life energy isn't that powerful, is it? Why do they need to rip off Shinra? Why do they need to do transformations in the first place? Why were they in a state where they needed a solution to a problem or else they die from the transformations? Was it a disease? Genetic engineering by their enemies? This is why you need to have plot holes be filled right from the start. Mysteries never being solved for the sake of staying mysteries. That's just a hack writer cover-up for lazy writing. At least this is creative and interesting. I'd never say this wasn't creative instead of stale. But come on, I'm so confused. I even have a cocked eyebrow just trying to figure this all out when I'm typing it. It would have made more sense if her transmitter was a magical spell the heroes wouldn't know how to break, and not some magical microscopic device attached to her brain.